It's up to you.
This works.
Okay.
Yeah. So
just tell me what you've got out of the conversations over the weekend and how it's compared with your expectation.
okay, well, I was lucky in the sense that I didn't really have expectations because I hadn't been before, so there was nothing for it to literally measure up against. But the experience that I've had that's really heartening is that coming together with relative strangers, of only one person or two people I knew a little bit, very little, there was this camaraderie in the shared exploration, and there was room for us to develop within the context of the conversations. So on the one level there was a sort of cerebral mix going on, where you could sort of feel the different quality of people exchanging ideas and exchanging thinking. And then when we started to explore what is thinking and what is listening, I was particularly interested in that, in terms of the what is listening, because it felt like when it was very cerebral, it seemed to be at the cost of deeper listening. So I could hear words going around like bullets, and it speeded up actually. And so when we brought back in the listening component, it was just magical. You know, all of a sudden we were like in this deeper ocean and swimming slower as a result. So it was less frenetic. And even the frenetic is relative, because you compare that to the typical lived daily conversations that one has. You know, they're at warp speed compared to my version of frenetic in this context. So everything is so relational and context driven.
I understand.
Yeah. So the intention, the fact that we shared an intention to find out how to connect, and whatever we met that seemed to get in the way of us going deeper, we went into that next. So we used each aspect of any sense of blocking as the key to the next room down. So if it was a lift, an elevator, it was like we just kept going down and down and down. And we all knew when we were in the place, sort of at the bottom. There was just it was just a feeling. And that was the quality of presence. It was a very felt experience.
Because quite a few people have mentioned that when, was it you that kind of brought up the issue of listening?
I did.
It really turned the tide and
it did.
Made things go in the right direction.
Yes.
For, bringing everyone together.
And you know what was interesting, and I think this is why conflict is actually quite a valuable thing to be noticing, is the morning was such a contrast. So it was fast, it was cerebral, it was fascinating and interesting, but it was only circulating in a certain sphere of exploration, and it didn't seem change occurred there. By being so apparent, it prompted the rising of a need, like, hey, can we go deeper? You know, is that really, do we really want to do that? Because if we do, now is the time. And I think something in the contrast flagged the need for us to consciously choose. And I think that's a lesson worth bearing in mind. So if we're experiencing conflict somehow, however it's showing up, rather than trying to just completely avert it or ignore it or whatever it might be, if one enters into it and uses that as the entrance point, the questioning point, then it seems like that dissolves and becomes a larger room. So I find that interesting.
So it's almost the conflict is almost a good thing. Once it's addressed in the right way, then it almost becomes a positive thing.
Yes, if it's used the right way, it can have a positive result. I still hesitate to say conflict is a good thing, because I think of the levels of suffering that are going on because of conflict around the world. I don't feel I can say honestly that I think that's a good thing. But I'm aware that within the context of conflict, once it's present, if we're capable and willing and know how, I think it is a skill, to have to learn really how to just be present within the conflict, that one can potentially dissolve what's going on personally and find some empathy, empathy for self, empathy for other, empathy for the context, and that becomes the transformative element. So I would wish, being me, for no conflict, Libra, love harmony. But having said that, I've spent my life kind of bumping into things and chewing on them, and that can have a form of conflict within it. So there's something in me that's driven towards really better understanding how is it that we come together without compromising our curiosity for individuality, and yet still satisfying the need to honour the collective perspective, the collective arising perspective, and to be listening for that. Not always with words. So I have valued this time very much. I feel very happy that I've become part of this experience, part of this family. And we may never ever come together again, the same people. We'll never be in the same river with the same toad twice.
Yeah, that's true.
And yet there's a feeling of continuity, which I really appreciate.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear.
So that's it really.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
That's perfect.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.